During World War II, the Germans unleashed something the world had never seen. Guided missiles designed to sink ships with pinpoint accuracy. Not torpedoes, not dive bombers, actual remote-controlled weapons. In 1943, these new missiles, HS-293 and the armor-piercing Fritz-X, started hitting Allied warships from miles away, sinking cruisers, crippling battleships, and forcing the Allies to invent electronic jamming on the spot. This was the moment modern missile warfare was born, and it terrified every navy on Earth. During the first years of World War II, the brutal naval fighting across the North Sea, Norway, and especially the Mediterranean revealed a hard truth to the German high command. Traditional air attacks on ships simply weren't working. Level bombers dropped heavy payloads over long distances, but hitting a moving ship from altitude was like trying to throw a stone into a bucket on a windy day. Dangerous, wasteful, and usually ineffective. Torpedo bombers could get closer and score hits, but that came with horrific losses, as entire multi-man crews were wiped out every time a slow-moving aircraft got caught in concentrated naval gunfire. Even the feared Stuka dive bombers, accurate but vulnerable, were losing survivability as commanders demanded bigger and heavier bombs that bled range, speed, and agility. By 1940-41, the Luftwaffe needed something radically new, some way to combine the accuracy of a human-guided strike with the safety of keeping their pilots far away from naval guns. Out of desperation, innovation, and a string of failed experiments, the Germans pushed forward two extraordinary new weapons: the Henschel HS-293, a rocket-boosted gliding missile designed to kill merchant ships and escorts, and the Verstal SD-1400X Fritz-X, a high-altitude guided armor-piercing bomb capable of sinking even battleships. Both represented a technological leap that, for a moment, shocked the Allies and rewrote the future of warfare. The HS-293 began as the awkward Schwarz glider bomb, a weak, slow, unpowered platform that could barely stay stable and had only a crude autopilot keeping it on a straight heading. When designer Herbert Wagner, eccentric but brilliant, was transferred to Henschel, he reshaped the glider into a more aerodynamic craft, fitted with wing-mounted ailerons, and eventually equipped it with a Walter rocket motor that transformed it into a true missile. This first combat-ready version, the HS-293A1, carried an SC-500 explosive warhead and used radio control signals to guide it up, down, left, or right. Its operator watched a bright flare on the tail and steered it visually toward the target, while a simple gyro kept it stable between commands. Its weaknesses were just as obvious. The flare could be confused with tracer fire, the autopilot toppled if the bomb dived too steeply, and the Walter rocket, powered by volatile hydrogen peroxide, terrified ground crews who had to fuel it while praying it didn't ignite. Yet despite these problems, in August 1943 the HS-293 was ready for war, and the world's first operational guided anti-ship missile entered combat over the Bay of Biscay. The opening attacks were chaotic. HMS Egret's crew watched smoking objects curve toward them, crash into the sea, or abruptly turn off course as operators struggled with this never-before-seen weapon. But within days, the Germans scored their first devastating success. The missile struck HMS Egret near the waterline, igniting her magazine and sinking the ship with terrible speed, making her the first warship in history destroyed by a guided missile. Other attacks followed. The destroyer HMCS Athabaskan was pierced clean through by a missile that oddly failed to explode until it exited the opposite side. Convoy escorts dodged volley after volley, and ships like HMS Dido and HMS Rockwood were hit, damaged, or crippled even through heavy defensive fire. The Allies scrambled for countermeasures. Ships were told to turn toward incoming missiles to narrow their silhouette, and gunners were instructed to target the missiles themselves instead of the bombers launching them. Jamming attempts began, some crude, some clever. One trick involved using the unshielded motors of electric razors to create chaotic electromagnetic noise that could be broadcast to scramble the HS-293's control frequencies. At the same time, secret sabotage inside German factories, often carried out by forced laborers, caused missiles to suddenly lose guidance mid-flight after workers had carefully cut and rewrap tiny wires so they would fail only under vibration. Even with these issues, HS-293 strikes still scored hits in the Mediterranean. Destroyers and transports off Italy, Sicily, and Anzio fell victim. HMS Spartan, a Dido-class cruiser, became the largest warship sunk by the HS-293 when a missile hit her boiler rooms, killing power and sealing her fate. But as Allied fighter cover strengthened and German bombers became scarce, HS-293 losses mounted. By late 1944 and early 1945, the weapon saw only sporadic use, sometimes launched at bridges or river crossings in desperate attempts to slow the Allied advance. Its wartime chapter closed in April 1945, when a final handful of missiles destroyed bridges over the River Ure, just weeks before Germany surrendered. The other half of this story, the Fritz-X, was a very different kind of monster. Where the HS-293 was designed to glide towards smaller, lightly armored ships, the Fritz-X was built to crack open the heaviest Allied warships alive. Born from pre-war experiments in steering falling bombs, it used radio command signals and aerodynamic surfaces to adjust its course after release. But instead of a thin-cased demolition warhead, the Fritz-X carried the PC-1400, a 1.4-ton armor-piercing bomb designed to smash through decks and explode deep inside its target. Early tests showed it was so aerodynamic that it fell too fast, causing guidance controls to jam at terminal velocity. Engineers added an air brake and a bright tail flare for tracking, creating a stable, accurate, terrifyingly powerful weapon. To carry it, Germany needed large, high-altitude bombers like the Dornier Do-217K and Do-217M. Using these platforms, the Fritz-X made its combat debut in the Mediterranean in 1943 and immediately rewrote naval history. Its most famous victim was the Italian battleship Roma. After Italy surrendered to the Allies in September 1943, the German Luftwaffe attacked the fleeing Italian fleet. From high altitude, German bombers released Fritz-X weapons guided visually by operators watching their fall. A Fritz-X punched through Roma's deck near the forward turret, exploding deep inside. Moments later, a second Fritz-X hit near the engine rooms. The blast ignited the magazines, and Roma broke apart and sank, killing over 1,300 sailors, including the fleet's admiral. It was the first battleship in history sunk by a guided weapon. Other victims followed. The Italian battleship Italia was heavily damaged. The light cruisers Savannah and Philadelphia were struck, Savannah nearly sinking after a Fritz-X passed through the deck, through multiple decks below, and detonated deep inside the hull. The destroyer Loyal and various landing ships were also hit. But just like with the HS-293, the Allies adapted. Radar-equipped fighters hunted German bombers mercilessly. Jamming grew more effective as the Allies narrowed down the guidance frequencies and blasted them with interference. German bomber losses rose, production fell, and the window of opportunity for these advanced weapons closed rapidly. By late 1944, Fritz-X attacks dwindled to almost nothing. The remaining bombs sat in storage as Germany collapsed. Looking back, both HS-293 and Fritz-X were crude by modern standards, visually guided, radio-controlled, vulnerable to weather, jamming, and pilot error. But they were also revolutionary. They proved that precision-guided weapons could sink ships far more effectively than unguided bombs or high-risk torpedo runs. They forced the Allies to rapidly advance electronic warfare, jamming, and defensive tactics. And they marked the birth of the missile age, decades before smart bombs became a global norm. The story of HS-293 and Fritz-X is not just about weapons, but about the beginning of a new era, where wars at sea would never again be fought the same way.